The holidays are upon us. New Year's is just around the corner, and it is myself and AJ Strangebrew, and Dave is run down by the holidays. I personally am exhausted by the holidays, and AJ, you got to know like a cure for this exhaustion.
So the reason I'm not run down is because I've got my Dubby, and when you've got your Dubby, your jitterless energy drink, you can put it into anything. What I do in the morning is I actually like to put it in my smoothie. I make a nice little berry smoothie, put it in there. It gives me all the energy I need for the day. It keeps me running even through this holiday season, and I'll be ready to kiss all the ladies when it comes time for New Year's Eve, baby. Go to a Dubby, put in the code fans working, save yourself 10%, and then you could have energy like your brother in arms, AJ Strangebrew, in the Working Fans Podcast.
That's WGG. Today we are talking 2023, and you heard myself and the man called Dave get into this a little bit at the end of our predictions episode, and me and Dave did it kind of, I wouldn't say half-heartedly, but we threw it in with the predictions. So you're gonna see my responses might be different than that episode. Male Wrestler of the Year, AJ, who do you feel really was that top spot this year?
You know, it's hard because it's easy to go Roman Reigns because he's still the world's champ. He's still sitting on top. But my personal male wrestler of the year was actually Gunther. I think what Gunther has done for the Intercontinental Championship, the level that he's actually brought wrestling to, and the fact that he's there every week, Gunther's my male wrestler of the year.
That's such a good choice. I have to go with MJF, even though I feel like he could be used better in AEW. And when you mentioned Gunther, I almost instantly regretted my pick. But when MJF is out there, he takes chances on the mic. He is still excellent. Aside from that Full Gear pay-per-view, he hasn't done much that I haven't enjoyed. So I've got to go with MJF for my male wrestler of the year.
MJF would have been a close number 2 for me. I like everything that he's done, whether it's interacting with Roddy Strong, whether it's his relationship with Adam Cole. All of them have been tremendous. To me, it's just that Gunther has been able to raise a title that was pretty much dead.
Female Wrestler of the Year. This is, I don't know. It's definitely not going to go in the AEW category just because of just how the women have been booked. I mean, Toni Storm has been amazing, but I feel like if she started that character earlier in the year, she could like take that top spot. I don't know who my female wrestler of the year is. I'd like to hear your choice first, and maybe that'll help me form an opinion.
Female wrestler of the year is probably the hardest category. I'm going to actually give it to Io Sky. The reason why is because she came out of nowhere this year, looked like she was going to be a secondary player, maybe a third player in the group with Bayley and Dakota Kai. And now that group is really based around her. And she's been a diamond in there. Every match is a great match with her. By the way, I agree with you with Toni Storm. If Toni Storm's character had started earlier in the year, it might be hard not to give it to Toni Storm. But right now, for me, Io Sky.
I think it just says something overall about women's wrestling where, like, I could come out with a male wrestler so easy, but when it comes to female, the WWE has been booking them better, but it's still not ideal. And I feel like in AEW, they're almost non-existent. I'm going to go with Io Sky because I agree with you that comeback and just becoming the centerpiece of Damage Control. Like, Bayley is a close second because what she's done with that group's been amazing.
Someone who we didn't mention who deserves recognition is actually Tiffany Stratton down in NXT. What she's actually done with her character, her work rate has improved greatly, and she tells a story every time she's in there. And she's got legit heat. So she's a runner-up for me also.
Yeah, and if you want to go with females on the indies, we saw Megan Bayne this summer, and I feel like she is at that next level where she's got to be signed within a year. If you want to go to New Heights Wrestling that me and Dave call, you have Emily Locke and T. Gaines, who recently wrestled for the first women's championship down there. Eliza Hayes set such like a division in New Heights Wrestling that I feel like the more indie the company, the more into women's wrestling I am, because they just seem to feature it more and it gets a little more shine. Another aspect of wrestling that doesn't nearly get the shine that it should, tag team of the year. We talked about this a couple episodes ago, how tag team wrestling is kind of on a decline. Who's your tag team of the year?
I'm gonna probably be disagreed with by 99% of the people out there, but I love the evolution of the Gun Club. The Gun Club I find extremely entertaining. Their work rate in the ring has just taken leaps and bounds, and I'm actually going to give my tag team of the year and piss off everybody to the Gun Club.
That's funny. One of the notes I made last year when I was watching our 2023 predictions is I can't remember. Dave might have said it, but he said it could be a huge year for the Gun Club. And we said this early January. So for them to have such a good year, I can't dispute that. Obviously,
yeah, but I want to believe you on that prediction, but it doesn't sound correct that Dave's right.
I don't know, and it's tough because I want to say FTR, but they haven't been featured a ton.
It's hard, and look at the WWE. The WWE has been basically makeshift tag teams through the year. The true legitimate tag teams have not gotten a shot in the WWE as of late.
Yeah, it's like they've got legitimate tag teams breaking up, makeshift tag teams coming together and breaking up. You want to say Owens and Zayn had a good year until they lost the titles, but that was still like a fraction of the year.
Actually, the WWE tag team that probably had the best run of the year is Gallus and NXT, who had the belts for a good portion of the year.
That's not bad. I'm actually going to give it to the Creed brothers because I've recently been seeing them pop up on Raw. The couple times I've popped in on Raw the last, couple months, and I have found them highly entertaining and deserving of coming up to that main roster spot. Being stuck for a tag team, I'm going to pick them.
I love the Creed brothers. The only problem I have with the Creed brothers is they had about a 2-month block there where you didn't see the Creed brothers at all because they were supposedly lost that loser leaves town match. So a good portion of the year, the WWE wasn't doing necessarily great with them, but I love what they're doing now.
Yeah, it's a tough spot because I don't know how many tag teams have had a consistent year. They've gone part of the year injury, some of the year injury. Like the Von Erichs are getting a very good push in AEW ROH right now, but I don't know if that's just because they were at those Texas tapings. They got Final Battle, they got Collision out of it, they got an ROH taping. I hope to see more of them. And to get sidetracked for a little bit before we get to Faction of the Year and more enjoyable company of the year, where are you about seeing the Iron Claw? Will you be going to the theater to see it?
Oh, no, I'll be seeing it in the theater. That's something that you got to see on the big screen. First of all, for no other reason but the fact just give a little bit of respect to that story, to that family, and to give a little bit of respect to Texas wrestling in general. People have a tendency of forgetting how great Texas wrestling was through World Class. However, if you put their feud, the Freebirds versus the Von Erichs, up against any feud in the history of wrestling, you're going to be hard-pressed to actually match the heat there. And the tragedy that fell upon the Von Erich family, having grown up in that time period, I can tell you, you will not see more tragedy. And if they tell the story even partially as good as they can, people are going to love this movie.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. Faction of the Year. Who stood out for you as Faction of the Year? Because I feel like factions were featured a little more than tag teams.
I was going to say there were a lot of factions that were actually done this year. I still think that it's going to be hard to beat some of the male factions. I love what they've done with Damage Control. And I know it's going to be real easy to go with the Bloodline and then they broke up. It's going to be really easy to look at Rhea Ripley, the success that they've had with Dominic as a heel, looking at the success of Damian Priest and the whole group. Now adding Ron Killings to the mix, R-Truth if you prefer. But to me, what they've done with Damage Control, adding the Kabuki Warriors, getting the belt on Io Sky. Bayley just signed a contract extension. So look for this storyline to really go even further. To me, Damage Control, Faction of the Year.
Even though they've kind of started splintering, I really liked the LWO right around that Puerto Rico show where it couldn't have been any bigger. They got Carlito in. Obviously Bloodline and Judgment Day are going to be everybody's 1 and 2. You could argue, I'll give it to the House of Black too in AEW. They're the one AEW faction that I feel like has stayed strong and hasn't lost any credibility through like the muddied storylines. But for me,
What they've done with Julia Hart is absolutely amazing too. They have made
yes.
her a legit contender for any title and now a champion.
But for me, that Puerto Rico show and seeing LWO stand out big, that was great. And let's just call it, I don't even have a header for it. But what was your event of the year? Because now that I think back to Backlash Puerto Rico, just the way they represented the country, the camera shots they got, just the whole feel of the show was great. I mean, you also had Wembley this year. I feel like those could be tied for 1 and 2.
This is one of the hardest things, the event of the year. On a personal note, my personal favorite is the one that we went to because we were there when we were at NXT Deadline. The fact that we were there, we got to see CM Punk come out, we got to see Shawn Michaels, we got to see Rey Mysterio, and then all the great NXT talent. For me, on a personal note, if I was playing bias, then that would be my favorite of the year. However, the best event and biggest event of the year to me, AEW in Wembley Stadium. The fact that they were able to sell it out, the fact that they even were able to do that, if they had actually put something into the card, it would have been incredible. WWE, if you're putting card and everything together, then I agree with you with Puerto Rico.
Well, if I've got to go a selfish pick or kind of, a pick that's close to my heart, the Grizzled Great Get Together, where NEW came to Jewett City, was a great event. We were able to be a part of it. You can see our call of the event up on our YouTube channel. If you're watching this now, you're probably on our YouTube channel. Chances are you're not subscribed. So subscribe to the YouTube channel and search Grizzled Great Get Together, and you will see us on there. And AJ, our last category of the year, more enjoyable company of the year.
Are we counting NXT as a separate company? WWE
I'm going to say
overall,
yes, because I did not think of them.
to see the development of NXT and to see, because they had almost buried NXT. When they switched over to NXT 2.0, they almost buried NXT. To see them rise like a phoenix from the ashes this year and really develop the young talent to a point where older talent was coming down and getting a rebirth. People are actually wanting to come from the main roster and compete in NXT because look at Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin had become Mr. Unimportant and irrelevant basically in any storyline. And he has come down. He got a rebirth. You have so many stars that NXT to me has been the most enjoyable thing this year.
That is a good pick. I didn't even think of them. Like when we went into this year, I believe we all thought it was going to be AEW because at the end of last year, we had such high hopes. Jamie Hayter was on top. I think we almost all picked her for Woman of the Year, and then she got injured for More of the Year. Early on, things got good because Vince got out of control, and then he got back into control, and they kind of faltered. And now that he's officially out, overall, SmackDown has stayed amazing. Raw is kind of like hit or miss. Some weeks it's good, some weeks it's not as good, but it's never as bad as like Vince bad. And like you said, NXT, whenever I pop in and watch it, which isn't often, it's always an amazing show. So it's always like, every time I watch it, I'm like, I should be watching this show more often.
Well, it's also such a fun atmosphere where they do it there in Full Sail. The fact that they've been smart enough to stay in that location other than going out for the pay-per-views, they've done a great job of cultivating their fan base there. And they have the different sections of the crowd. It's always filled to the brim. It looks great on TV.
That was the wrap up of 2023. 2024, we're going to get out there with more watch-alongs. We're going to bring you more podcasts, more combat cast. Stay up on our shorts. We'll have short videos. Thank you for making 2023 what it was this year, fans.
We can't do this without the fans. We are the Working Fans Podcast. The most important thing in that title is not the working or the podcast. It's the fans that tune in each week and come in and check out our content. Without you guys, there's no point to this. We'd just be three guys in a basement talking to each other. And that would not be anywhere near as fun or anywhere near as rewarding. So please have a great holiday whenever you're hearing this. I hope your next year is just filled to the brim with exciting things and wonderful things in your life. And don't forget once again to go and check out w.gg get your 10% off by using Fans Working. And that way you'll have plenty of energy to really kick ass in the new year.
100%. There are going to be a lot of new things coming in 2024.
Oh, wait a minute, Joe. We don't want to let the cat out of the bag here. But this man right here, producer Joe, is going to have one of the funnest shows coming up in the new year. And I know he's going to want to tell you a little bit about it, but it's literally going to be a time capsule in every show. And he's going to be going through the best wrestling magazines in time.
Well, 100%. Now, before we take you to Wrestleville, I'd like to introduce you to Magazine Mania. It is a wrestling magazine podcast where every week we are going to be going through an issue of a magazine and reading the articles. Let me play a quick video I made to introduce you to it. And if you could, go over to subscribe to Magazine Mania Podcast on YouTube. January 1st, the first episode comes out, and you are going to see new episodes every Monday. Welcome to Magazine Mania, a wrestling magazine podcast. In this video, I am going to introduce the podcast by covering the 5 W's, though not in the traditional order. Each week on this podcast, I am going to go through a wrestling magazine, and I'm going to look at the articles featured on the cover. Be sure to pay attention to our other social medias for other articles throughout the magazine. I am creating this podcast because I am such a fan of wrestling magazines, and as technology advances, we are seeing fewer in the print form on magazine racks, and I really miss that. I am producer Joe. You may know me from the Working Fans podcast, and each week we will be reading a different wrestling magazine together with a slight skew towards the classic. The show will release each Monday at 6:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time starting January 1st, 2024. Every Wednesday on TikTok, I will release a video looking at the rankings section in that issue. Every Friday on Instagram, I will post ads from that issue. Subscribe, like, rate, and review wherever you find us, and thank you for joining us on this journey.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Wrestleville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harrison, Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Wrestleville.com. Wrestleville. It's where wrestling lives.